What's up, family? Welcome back to another edition of the Try Life On podcast, where we share lived experiences and practical ways to design a life you do not need a vacation from. Today's topic is integration versus consumption. I don't think many of you have heard that phrase before. We all know the word consumption. We live in a consumption society where everyone buys everything. There's so much information out there. We are constantly consuming, but you'll notice that media, traditional or social or school or any type of format that you are in never talks about the concept of integration, at least not to a high level. But we're going to talk about integration versus consumption, not because information itself is not valuable, it completely is, but because many people, a lot of you, already possess more than enough information to materially improve your lives. The missing piece, though, is integration. I was doing a review of the podcast library. I think this is episode 168, and I'm up to 66 or 67 newsletters on the website. I've done countless webinars, coached a lot of different people, et cetera, et cetera. There are so many topics that are within that library of information that for the most part, usually what I'm talking about now is how to better integrate information, because the base knowledge that you need to attain your financial freedom, your time freedom, your location freedom, better understanding your purpose and better developing relationships, those five freedoms, most of that information is already available within the library of the Try Life On universe. Now, I have the benefit of speaking to a lot of you via email or in the global WhatsApp community or in some method. Sometimes actually run into people in airports nowadays who will recognize me from the Try Life On mantra, if you will. And we go back and forth on topics. And I got an email. So what prompted this episode is I got an email from a member, and I want to read that email to you because it was a fantastic example of someone who has taken information, Try Life On information, but really it's just life information. My information is not trademark per se, right? I am just giving you guys lived experience on how I've created lifestyle for myself and the kinds of things I've learned about conscious creation, for example. But I get to exchange with you. And here's the email I got. It had to do with the newsletter that I put out 2 or 3 weeks ago on the fact that time freedom is a skill. And I was talking about the fact, so the thing I was getting into on the newsletter, and you can go to the website and find it on time freedom. But what I was getting to in that newsletter was, look, put aside 4 hours a day, because 4 hours a day is 20 hours a week, is 80 hours a month, is 960 hours a year, and you've created 5 weeks of time to work on yourself or work on your lifestyle or your financial freedom journey or your business or whatever it is. And if you add a Saturday and a Sunday block, you've created an extra 2 months of time. It's a 14-month year. You do that over 6 years, you've created a year of time, right? We were going back and forth by email, and he reached out to me and asked me a couple questions on that concept because I know him. He's integrating the information into his life. And in a response, he not floored me, but it's great when I receive feedback, when I know that someone is listening to the information and using it. It's not just listening, it's using the information. But let me read the last paragraph of his email. He said, as I approach my 40s, I've realized that life isn't all about money and that our family, friends, and relationships are the gold that we will remember and cherish when it's all done. Very much appreciate you reaching back out. He's talking about the email. Very much appreciate you reaching back out for your life guidance. I'm close to $32,000 yearly in dividends and just working on my basic needs number to free up time. I don't think I fully understood that concept until it was close enough to taste. And frankly, I wouldn't have intentionally approached life this way had I not come across your content. So thank you for shining that light in the world. Well, he's giving me credit for shining light into the world, but I want to give him credit for shining light right back into mine because when I feel people using the information that I put out there, it feels great. He was referencing, for example, newsletter 33, Breaking the Millionaire Myth, where I talked about cash flow being more important than being a millionaire on paper, where I expressed how cash flow is to live life, where the millionaire status is just a title, just like you do it at work. But when I did explain cash flow is to live life, I explained you got to get your basic needs covered because once you can get your basic needs number, your monthly number covered, it allows you to de-stress and control your time and get out of survival mode. So in that newsletter 33, I expressed that my basic needs number, and this is around 2010, 2012 when I was on my core financial freedom journey, was $2,400 a month in a mortgage, $2,000 of bills, gas, food, etc. 2,000 for the kids at the time. I had one kid at the time. And I also facetiously said zero on cars and junk because I notoriously do not buy a lot of commercial garbage. And I still have my 2005 Infinity. Although I did finally buy a new car, but it's a Honda and it will be given to my son in a couple of years when he's old enough to drive. Anyways, what he took away from that newsletter was the fact that I eclipsed my basic needs number. And by doing so, it took away survival pressure and it allowed me to concentrate much more on living life my way. Yeah, and you know what? Social media, traditional media, your parents, your friends, the people you compare yourselves to, your boss, your boss's boss. We all get this notion that we have to have a massive amount of money in the bank. You don't. Once you get your basic needs number covered, what people can't feel that I have gone through over the last decade and a half, maybe 15 years or so now, that number is covered. Your basic needs are covered and life starts compounding on itself because you can now, instead of stressing on survival, your reticular activating system, your filter, the person that you are is now easily able to pick out life opportunities. You meet someone who becomes a great friend. That person introduces you to someone else who becomes a great friend. You travel somewhere in the world or in your city. You have access to the next opportunity, all because you meet that basic needs number. That email that he sent me was a wonderful example of him taking that information and creating cash flows from himself. Now, in my case, everybody knows for the most part, I relied on real estate to create income monthly over my life, but real estate is not the point. It's anything that can generate revenue for you will give you a leg up. And for him, he chose dividend stocks. For you, it might be a small business. It could be something totally different. It could be your actual employer paycheck that you sock away forever and then just put it in the stock market and create additional flows coming out of the stock market. But for him, he chose dividends and he has dividend stocks is what I think he did. And now he's at $32,000 a year. He's taking his active paychecks and slowly and systematically with patience transferring that money into stocks that pay dividends on an annual basis. My assumption is while he's still working, he's not actually using those dividends to live. He's reinvesting those dividends so he can go out and buy more dividend stocks on top of his paychecks. Now he's reinvesting the dividends. So that goes faster and faster. And I bet you he'll have his basic needs number covered very, very soon. So I sent him a thank you for letting me know that he understood the concept of basic needs. But more so than that, the fact that he's integrating it into his life, he's trying life on and he's not going to be plugged into the status quo nonsense much longer. Actually, from a mindset perspective, he left the status quo a long time ago and he's executing. What we're talking about is executing on a day-to-day basis. I love that. So why did he get results? Because he's implementing, right? He used that newsletter and any other research that he did to implement and to execute that particular concept. Did he discover secret information? No. Did he find a guru nobody found out? Excuse me. Did he find a guru nobody else found? No. He simply just found an idea that resonated and stayed with it long enough for the results to emerge. We don't do that in this society. This society, and I'm talking to you directly, we are very instant. Uber, Uber Eats, Postmates, Amazon. Everybody wants everything so quickly. That observation should raise a bigger question, or at least it raises a bigger question to me. What if most people don't have an information problem? What if what you have is an integration problem? Do you really need to read 300 books a year? Or is it that you need to find 2 or 3 books that have the information that resonates with you and you execute on that information with systematic patience until you get what you want? I tell you, my friends, the modern world rewards consumption. That's the big problem. Information has never been more available, ever. I remember when I started on my core journey, I've talked about it a lot. I would always go to the library. And yes, the library was full of information. But because it was in book format, it was so detailed that you could really get to it and implement it. I think in our current setup, especially with social media and stories on Instagram and posts on LinkedIn, people are reading a post and thinking that they know enough. No, you don't know anything. You have an idea. You got to dive deeper into that information that you're consuming so you can go integrate it, right? You want to learn investing? There's thousands of books and videos. You want to learn about health? There's endless content of health out there. You want to learn about better relationships, spirituality, business, parenting, travel hacking, unlimited information. Again, the problem is that consumption can create the emotional feeling of progress without actual progress. People are becoming professional consumers. They know more and more every year, but little changes. So that's why I wanted to get into the conversation of consumption versus integration. So what is consumption? Consumption is if you want to feel consumption, or if you want to get a sense if you are consuming, you're probably asking yourself what's next the moment you put a book down. What's next? If you're integrating, you're asking yourself what's worth practicing. So in the case of the email, he decided, I'm going to figure out this whole basic needs number. And he started practicing that, executing it, testing it, living it, breathing it, sleeping with it. Consumption, my friends, collects information. Integration collects evidence. Are you collecting evidence of that thing that you learn to attain your financial freedom or your time freedom or your geographic freedom or better relationships? The thing that a lot of people struggle with is consumption is exciting because it feels new. It's the next fad. Think about it. If you go all the way back to the 2000s, the dot-com era, NFTs, real estate, gold, Bitcoin, Dogecoin, whatever coin. There's so much. People just grab onto it and it's exciting because it's new, but it's really not consumption that helps you. It's integrating. Integration itself is transformative because it becomes part of your identity. It becomes part of your subconscious routines. You know how you get up in the morning and you brush your teeth without thinking of it? Whatever it is that is resonating with you about a certain piece of information, it needs to get to the point where you're waking up and you're executing it without even thinking about it. That's how you break free. A person can read 300 books and never change. A person can read one book and spend 10 years living it. The latter is way better. I referenced to you newsletter 33, Breaking the Millionaire Myth. I really encourage you to read it. I was not a millionaire. Well, let me say it this way. What got me free was not millionaire status. Just like you being the executive vice president of your company is not making you free. What got me free is cash flow. And I explained how getting to your basic needs number is a milestone that is so important on the journey. It can free you mentally, and then life just fundamentally changes. So that newsletter 33, it gives insight. The insight is not becoming a millionaire. The insight is understanding the difference between status and freedom itself. Cash flow matters way more than millionaire status. There's a lot of paper millionaires in the world who are stuck. The basic needs number matters way more than impressing strangers. And income matters way more than labels. If you go back to my own story, where I've referenced so many times how when I was in corporate life, I was asked to enter the partner track of my firm and I turned it down. The reason I turned it down was because my basic needs number was already met in the background. I didn't need the money. And if I would have taken that partner track, and if I would have been fortunate enough to actually make partner, I would have added another 30 to 40 hours of work to my schedule on top of what I was already doing for money that really wouldn't have moved the needle. That's what getting to your basic needs number does for you. And that's what newsletter 33 talks about, breaking the millionaire myth. So as my man applied it in that email, as he said, he began creating income producing assets by taking money from his paycheck, buying dividend producing stocks. I believe he did stocks. We didn't totally get into it, but buying dividend producing stocks, reinvesting those dividends, adding them to his paycheck, and doing it again. He stayed with the concept, and the results are following. As I said, I'm going to give you something else, another resource that can help you with this. I wrote a newsletter. It's newsletter 57, and it's the operating systems behind freedom. And in that newsletter, I talked about the concept of systematic patience, or faith expressed through consistent action, and how it's actually an operating system. It's the thing that gets into the subconscious part of you, just like brushing your teeth. It's your vision, it's your system, execution, and then your repetition. You know, most people are constantly changing systems. Integrators stay inside one system long enough to discover whether or not it works. So the lesson of that newsletter is not perfection. The lesson is sustained execution. It's not perfection, it's sustained execution. I talked about my own financial freedom example. It's a 10-step freedom plan that I wrote in 2002. And the reason I wrote that freedom plan, or where I got it from, was from one or two of the 5 books that I read over a 20-year period over and over and over again. That 10-step plan, which is expressed in newsletter 57, is give yourself a why, like your family, your lifestyle, your purpose. Stop buying commercial junk, forcing you to work because you got to keep paying the payments on it. Pay yourself first, make you the number one bill. You got to make future you the number one bill. Store your money versus saving money. Stay broke, but not poor. It's a mindset shift to store your money. And you build up enough money in storage to buy an asset, just like that gentleman did who wrote the email. His asset was dividend stocks. Mine was real estate for the most part over the years. You buy assets that pay you. So those dividend stocks, that real estate, that business. And I want to throw in there self-education. When you educate yourself, you buy a book or just go to the library. I don't know why people don't go to the library anymore. I still go from time to time. That is an asset as well. But the last 4 steps, when that asset pays you, you store that income and you add it to your paycheck, just like my man did. And then you buy another one, you buy another one, you buy another one. That's why I am a supporter of people staying in their career while they're building up their asset base outside. So I gave I gave my own financial freedom example in newsletter 57. There were a couple other real world examples I threw in there. How I started the Try Life On coaching business and the podcast business. That took me 5 years of execution. I had the vision of just helping people design life they don't need a vacation from. The system that I used, I mentioned it, and I talked a little bit about the execution of it. Another real world example, building a 2-country lifestyle. I said it took me 6 years. My vision was to have real life in two different places. And I talked about the system and the execution, the dual career, actually, really the triple career of corporate, military, and policing, which was integrated over 15 years. The whole vision was leveraging corporate work for experiences, skills, pay, and then serving my community as a purpose, whether it was through the military or police. I explained the system and execution of it over a 15-year period. And then now I'm in a different life operating model where I've gone from building businesses, working actively for employers, et cetera, et cetera. I've gone from doing to being, the vision being less grind, more living, rewiring myself back to the 10-year-old kid that I was earlier in life so you can just enjoy life. And one side note on rewiring myself back to that 10-year-old kid, it's not so much rewiring myself, it's much more reducing the static of status quo life so you can reemerge, because we were never disconnected. We were just so inundated with all the responsibilities and the trappings of being an adult and trying to keep up with society that we forget that we are this amazing being that has the right to live free. So that is newsletter 57. I encourage you to go to the website and check it out. I gave real world examples on finances and actual lifestyle that I think will be very beneficial to you. But there's other examples as well, especially beyond finance. There's fitness, right? Everybody knows the basics: move, lift, eat, sleep, especially eating better. Yet people continue to search like for the perfect information instead of integrating good information. Just go to the next thing, the next studio, the next Pilates, the next Orange Theory, without truly getting after something for years and years. There's relationships. Most people don't need to read another relationship book. They need to consistently apply listening, communication, presence, honesty, spirituality. People move from teacher to teacher, fad to fad, book to book, yet many never sit quietly and practice the principles that move them in the first place. Then there's the big one for me that I've recognized with entrepreneurs. Well, actually, I'll go back to corporate life, especially in corporate life when I was there, and even in military life as well. The executives in both of those types of careers were often changing direction a lot, trying to get the biggest pay fast, et cetera, et cetera. This actually presents itself more in the entrepreneurial space, though, because entrepreneurs change direction so many times, so quickly. New strategy, new offer, new platform, nothing matures and nothing gets time, so they don't get anywhere. Consumption is hurting a lot of your effort to try life on. Flip it to integration. But integration is difficult, and here's why. It's repetitive. It is often invisible, and it is not exciting. Okay? So those things, those real world examples I gave you, if I go back to the financial one, in that financial freedom journey in newsletter 57, after I did the 10-step process, I explained it took me 8 years to get my basic life expenses covered by cash flow. It took 14 to get monthly income exceeding what I was receiving from work. And I think I'm actually on year 30 now. My assets are buying assets. Now it's a total machine. I don't necessarily have to work. I don't have to generate an enormous amount of effort for income to come in. And that's why I've gone from doing to being. But it wasn't sexy. It took an enormous amount of time. But once you get to a particular place, the outcomes start compounding on each other. But you know why integration is so difficult? Because nobody celebrates year 7. Nobody. Nobody applauds another ordinary investment contribution. Nobody posts about showing up consistently for a decade. Actually, people do post about it. I have posted about showing up when I was on social media. I did post about showing up consistently for decades, but nobody wants to execute for a decade. People want instant. People want the Uber of success. But it's the unsexy stuff. It's the non-exciting stuff. It's the repetitive stuff. It's the invisible stuff where transformation occurs. So if I give you a personal reflection to this whole thing, if I look back over my 3 decades of trying life on, and I say 3 decades because it was age 21. Well, it was age 15 when I had that experience in France where I started traveling the world and realized that life was much bigger than Boston, Massachusetts. And then it was age 21 when I found the first financial book explaining the concept of passive income to me. And I put two and two together and I said, man, if I can create passive income or just income streams, then I can detach myself from having to physically be somewhere to make money. And I can go back to being a 15-year-old kid where I can travel the world and feel good about life. And I have. If I look back over my 3 decades of trying life on, I do not see in my own journey hundreds of life-changing ideas. I don't. Yet I'm living the way most people interpret billionaires live. I'm not a billionaire. I have time freedom. I have financial freedom. I go wherever I want. I don't have a calendar anymore. I'm extremely present for my kids, present to a fault. But it's wonderful. But it was not because of 100 life-changing ideas. I just had a handful of ideas that I stuck with. I knew very early, starting at age 15, that experiences matter. Hence why I did multiple careers: to be a federal agent, to be a police officer, to be a corporate executive, to try out for the NFL, to act in TV shows. I wasn't trying to boil the ocean. I just knew that experiences matter. I also knew relationships matter, which is why I invest in relationships. I will get on a plane and fly halfway around the world, if not all the way around the world, just to have dinner with someone. And that's not when I was financially capable. That's when I had nothing. But I would find a way because relationships matter. Time itself is our most valuable asset. Time matters. Money is a tool. Employment is a resource to build life. One of the Try Life On principles is that the purpose of the purpose of salary from your career is to create an income. Employment is a resource to build life. Use it, leverage it. If you love it, stay there. That's great. But build income streams or build asset bases. Build relationships. And another life-changing thing that I understood quickly was that cash flow creates options. So experiences matter, relationships matter, time matters, money's a tool, employment is a resource, cash flow creates options, go live. That's how I've been living for the past 30 years, and I stuck with it. The difference is not that I learned those concepts. The difference is that I integrated them into my life. They are all subconscious routines of how I operate. And the people that I look up to, and when I say look up to, I don't mean from a money perspective now. I mean entrepreneurially, family, people that I respect, teachers, doctors, lawyers, my neighbor, my hardworking landscaper. I love that guy. You can see that their life, their happiness is coming from the fact that their value systems or something that they learn has been so repetitive in their life that it has dropped into their operating system. And that's how they are functioning, just like brushing their teeth. But it can work in reverse. You can just execute stuff like a ho-hum 9 to 5 that you really don't care about, and it becomes the operating system of your life. You've integrated somebody else's plan, probably your employer's. You can rewire that. But I didn't have hundreds of life-changing ideas. I just had a few. And I read 5 core books during my journey that I've expressed many times. And then now in my being phase, I read 3 books over and over. Those books are Power of the Subconscious Mind by Joseph Murphy, Constructive Power Through Thinking by Emmett Fox, and The Game of Life and How to Play It by Florence Scovel Shinn. I don't know. I think in the past 4 years, I've read those books 100 times collectively, and I can quote pages now out of those books. And I've implemented those things so much that they've become part of my operating system, who I am, how I think, how I roll, how I walk, and how I help you through this Try Life On podcast. All right. So here's some questions for you, okay, on consuming versus integrating, consumption versus integration. What idea have you read about, been exposed to, heard, especially on my podcast? I don't put out podcast episodes to teach you to try to get across to you or teach you or expose you to thousands of ideas. That's not the point. You have a library, use it. What idea already resonates with you, with who you are? You can feel it if it resonates with you. You're like, that's me. What lesson have you highlighted 3 times or more in a book or from the podcast? What concepts keep returning to your awareness over and over again? What truth do you already know but have not implemented? And then ask yourself, what would happen if you spent the next 3 years integrating that one idea instead of searching for another one? What would happen over 10 years? I can tell you what happened in my journey over 20 years. I'm free. Nobody can tell me what to do, except for my dad and my own God. Look, a social media post is an idea, okay? This podcast and any podcast I've put out to you is just an idea. My newsletter's just an idea. A book, it's just an idea. Coaching 101, ideas. None of those things can execute for you. None. They can inspire you. They can illuminate you. They can point you in the right direction. But you, my friends, you have to do the work to try life on. You have to practice. You have to integrate. What are you? Are you a consumer or are you an integrator? Because consumers collect information. Integrators collect evidence. They execute. If you've read newsletter 33, implement it. If you've read newsletter 57, operate it. If a book changed your life, stop highlighting the passages and start living them. The distance between the life you have and the life you want is often not another piece of information. It's the integration of the information you already possess. So for those 167 episodes of the Try Life On podcast that I've put out there on a myriad of topics to help you earn your 5 freedoms and to help you build lifestyle you don't need vacation from, don't consume that stuff anymore. Implement it. Integrate it into who you are. Go try life on. Be like my friend who wrote that email and get going. Try life on your way. I hope that helps. And I hope at some point you stop consuming and you start being the integrator that you are. Try life on. Hey guys, this is Maurice, host of the Try Life On podcast, and thank you for listening to another episode. I hope you are finding it useful and helping you design your own lifestyle that you don't need a vacation from. If that's the case, please consider dropping a review for me, whether in Apple, iTunes, or in Spotify. Drop a review, put some stars on it, give me some feedback on how I can make the podcast better, what information you are looking for. I am doing my best to get information to you on the Try Life On principles, the 5 freedoms, how to build lifestyle, travel hacking, all of it. And I want to do it for you. So please do a review for me. And until next time, my name is Maurice Philogene, and this is the Try Life On podcast. Peace.